All right, man. Be Your Elite Podcast, episode 6. Pumped up, man. I got Brandon Leath here today.
Yes, we do, and I'm excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me here, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I'm just always glad that there's people out there that want to have like thought-provoking conversations. It was one thing I was talking to my kids the other day. Every day they come from school. I'm like, how was school? They're like, lame.
Right.
And I'm like, man, can we let's do something thought-provoking. And it was kind of funny because the only thing thought-provoking I think of was like Joe Rogan's rants of like how we might be at war with plants. Have you listened to that podcast?
Yes, I actually have.
And my son was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, now you're thinking, aren't you? And he's like, oh, okay, I get what you're saying now.
Yeah, and that's kind of like me listening to podcasts has been one of these things that's kind of changed my outlook on how beneficial just having open conversations can be in general, and how much growth can come from it. And so I've tried to incorporate that kind of methodology within my friends, and that developed into a podcast of our own. But I also try to do that with my marriage as well. Like we have these open conversations where we just kind of dive into all these different things. And I think that there's so much to be said for the growth that can come out of stuff like that.
Oh yeah, it's one of the reasons when you reached out to me about my podcast initially. And then you guys started yours, and it was like, you're one of the guys that like every time something's posted, because I've been on this big social media kick lately where like I think it is a really positive thing if it's used appropriately. Like if people are using it to follow specific things or have it add to their life instead of like, if you're following 1,000 people and 900 of them are soul suckers, like that's your fault. It's not.
That's right.
It's not their fault because they're putting shit on there. It's your fault for having access to it. But so yours is one of the ones that I always like kind of stop. It's always a dope photo. It's always like a really good caption. It's always something like, oh man, okay. They're either battling something and trying to get something out to the universe just to like, hey man, this is where I'm at. I'm processing this. This is cool. This is what was great in my life. Had this great vacation or whatever. And I like people that are actually sharing the honest portions of their life, I think, for a lack of better terms. So so you're one of the dudes I'm always excited to like get in front of somebody and have a conversation, share a glass of nice scotch here. So today we've got, it's so funny, I feel like I do a shout out to like all these different, I'm not an alcoholic, everybody, just so everybody
You're about
knows.
to get some sponsors.
we enjoy some nice drinks, but we're drinking a 12-year-old Highland single malt Scotch whiskey here. And it's pronounced Anoc, A-N-C-N-O-C.
Yeah, that sounds pretty fancy.
It's delicious. I had some this weekend with a nice
cigar. Did you?
Yeah.
Well,
cheers, man.
Cheers.
I appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me.
So let's start from the beginning, man, because I think me and you, we met each other, man, probably 2013, 14 when I first opened Red Side?
Yeah, it was right around the time you opened Red Side. We were still at another gym. We were at, I think it was still CrossFit Leander at the time. And so we were over there. That's where a lot of the gyms kind of began, is at that spot. And I came into CrossFit with zero athletic ability whatsoever. I was super overweight, super out of shape. And so it was really intimidating to me in the beginning. But fortunately, we were just surrounded by a lot of positive people at the time. And those gyms kind of sprouted off into other gyms. And you guys came along and kind of developed a relationship with y'all. It was just super nice people. But it seems like every one of the gyms in the area had kind of a different vibe to it. You know, they had different types of programming, different types of coaching. And at the time, when you guys came along, I was just at a point where I wanted to just kind of get as much information as I could.
Yeah.
I was working for an insurance company, and so I was traveling periodically, and I would always drop into gyms. And that caused me to want to kind of go locally where I was at and just go to every gym I possibly could and just soak up as much information as possible, because I think that we're some of our best resources, and and at the time people were paying for all of these crazy certifications, and I'm like, we have all this information right here. Like let's just share this info,
Yeah, it's an interesting world, because that's one thing that fascinated me was that, it is a community and we all kind of know each other. But there's a lot of stuff that we kind of keep to the chest, like
100%.
This is what are y'all doing there to get X, Y, and Z out of it? It's like and then there's that like backroom talk where everybody. I'm not saying this is happening, but I know we've been guilty of it. Where like you get slighted by another gym or something, and then you're like, oh man, fuck these guys, and and then there's like this. It's so funny. I call it fitness shaming because it's like, you lose a member to Orange Theory Fitness, and then you're just like, you take it so personal. You're at home.
Absolutely.
You're like, dude, how are you going to Orange Theory? Like, crush it, which is interesting to me because I've always just been like, as soon as somebody's canceling, I'm like, man, where are you going? What are you doing? I just want to make sure you're like, don't go home and just sit on the couch and do nothing. Sure. Like you don't have to pay me money to be fit, but like let's figure out something for you that falls within your means. Because I'm like you, man. I was competition kettlebell guy at one point, weightlifting at one point. I was at the HIIT center at one point. I mean, I was at like every gym
just trying to see everything
for like 10 years. Just because I was so fascinated with all the different disciplines. And then CrossFit kind of started really exploding, probably 2010, 2011, right, where it was really like competitive and we were kind of seeing what it was actually doing. And that's when we started kind of building our business plan and trying to figure out what we wanted to do with it.
I react a lot to the way you're saying, but whenever I would lose a member, it would be just like the end of the world for me, because I'm like, what happened? And then when you'd see them pop up at another gym and on their social feed or whatever it might be, you would kind of take it as a slight at first, and you'd think, well, what did we do wrong here? And my wife, she's really good about kind of helping me out with like, it's not, they found something that's making them happy, and that should take precedent over everything. Just because that they didn't find what they need here. I mean, it could be a variety of reasons that led them to this other place, whether it's convenience or maybe the programming, or they have a better relationship with the coach over there. You should be happy that they're still finding, because my goal is I want people to leave the gym every single day happy. Yeah. And even if they actually fully leave the gym to another gym, I still want them to be in a good place.
Well, it's funny too, because we do the same thing in all aspects of everybody's life, in the sense that like we have a hard time removing ourselves and understanding that it's their journey. And it's like their decisions are their decisions. So if like, I've been a part of so many conversations. Relationships always come up with me and Danielle because we're so open and honest about our shit. People just want to like, hey, what do you guys think about, whatever. But, we would see like the interactions between like a husband and a wife, like at a dinner or something. And then like, if they left early, then it was like sharks were in the water. It was like, hey, did you see the way he was talking to her and this and that and da-da-da? And I'm like, well, dude, I didn't absorb any of that. Like, where did that come from? But we all just kind of do that by nature in a weird way. And it's like, we get wrapped up in the fitness world with that too. It's like, man, CrossFit just didn't work for them. Our gym just didn't work for them. Maybe CrossFit was what they wanted to, but the personalities just didn't jive or whatever. There's a million different factors that happen in fitness.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But I think it's an important lesson for us. It's one of the biggest things I took away as a gym was that like I can't take things personal like that, because they're individual journeys, and they're, for me to not understand all the complexities of that person's life and then be making a judgment on why they don't train in my gym was super exhausting.
Yeah,
I mean, the deal, man.
Yeah, there's so many things that I've realized that we see these people on a daily basis for a 60-minute period, and we have no idea what goes on the other part of their day. Like, and it's so crazy to kind of just assume that how their day is going, and what they're dealing with on a daily basis, and how hard to push them in the gym. And so it's been an awakening over the past probably year for myself to really start to look into, really getting into these people's lives and saying, what's going on outside of the gym? Why when you come in every day you tell me that your day was okay? I want to know why that
every
is.
day.
Yeah, every single day. Like let's fix that before we start to fix your fitness in here.
Well, and then there's so many factors that are involved with that. Is like, is it a person that's genuinely struggling? Is it a person that is slightly narcissistic and they just like attention, and they're just going because they're getting Brandon's attention.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of that like that I didn't recognize in the beginning of like who was what and what was genuine, who was actually struggling, who actually needed more attention, and kind of sifting through. The gym world was such a fascinating human condition thing for me, because it was like, it taught me a lot about myself, because I saw a lot of, I think when you start having issues with people, it's because you see a lot of yourself in some of those people. And it's just like, man, that okay, they're doing that, and it bothers me because I do it, and it bothers me about myself, and I can't get rid of it, and I can't figure out how to like process this thing or whatever the case may be. So, man, we went on like a fitness tangent. So what I was talking about from the beginning. So like that's about all I know about you as far as like, you know, we're in the gym space and we're kind of like some acquaintances and then seeing each other on social media and stuff. So like, you know, just kind of do like a kind of a once over, like where you come from, like the general, basics of like what got you where you are.
So I went to school. I basically lived in the Austin area or Liberty Hill area almost all my life. I've always been here. I went from kindergarten to high school, and about my sophomore or freshman year, I just was obsessed with this girl. High school cheerleader. I was chasing her from 9th grade to my senior year, just after this girl. And finally, my senior year, we kind of started seeing each other, you know, and that slowly progressed, and that's who now my wife is, Leslie. So we stayed together after I graduated high school. I was going to go off to Texas State to go to college, and went out, started my freshman year, and we decided to have a baby.
Decided.
Okay.
You have the same decision-making process.
Yeah, the decision-making process was made. I did not know it was being made, but it was made. So yeah, it was a great plan on my end.
And so you're 19.
So I'm 19.
How old is Leslie?
Leslie's also 19. So our birthdays are right there. You guys are the same. Yeah,
okay.
same age. And so I'm at school driving back I'm at San Marcos driving back to Austin every single weekend to help take care of the baby, which was crazy. In that time, it was hard for me to kind of keep track of school and the baby and work. Yeah, so I ended up moving back, ended up going to ACC for a little while, and then we were just broke. Yeah. We were just so poor, man.
That's one of the things that I loved about your story when I was hearing it on y'all's podcast, the Lazy Days, it's Lazy Sundaze podcast. Is that like as you were telling your shit, I'm like, oh man, it's so nostalgic for me to hear it.
Because I remember you were telling your story as well. And I was thinking to myself how they kind of crossed past just a little bit, but yeah, we had literally nothing. I had a job that was paying me, you know, next to nothing. Trying to help pay for school. Fortunately, I had parents to help pay for that a little bit, but had nowhere to live. Leslie's parents gave us this little house, and it wasn't even a house. It was like they put together some plywood, and it's like like I said on our episode, a single wide trailer would have been a step up from where we were at.
So it's just like a square.
It was like a closet
with an AC.
With an AC and a bathroom, one bedroom, and then we got the baby in there, and just trying to make things work. I mean, you couldn't even walk down the hallway together without hitting each other. Like it was rough, and we were we were on welfare basically, just trying to get the milk that we could get, the cheese that we could get at HEB, that whole embarrassing process. But we worked through it. I just kept grinding away at working a job that I, did not care for. It was one of those, where you're working 40 to 60 hours a week, doing something you absolutely hate. Also trying to go to school. So we slowly started to kind of climb our way out of debt. And prior to that, we ended up getting married in Vegas. We went and hit a classy Vegas wedding, $200 because that's all we could afford. So we did that. But yeah, we slowly started to get out. We ended up buying our first house, which it was also just, you could imagine, it was a train wreck of a house.
So if you don't mind me stopping,
yeah.
Like anytime somebody tells a story and they've got this huge smile on their face, to me it's perfect.
Right.
Like it's just one of those things where it's like, I wish everybody had that experience. I wish I could like time travel people back and just like kind of live with us for a month just to like see the hilarity of like.
Yeah, because every day was an adventure. And when we had that original house, I can remember the small house that was given to us. I can remember waking up Thanksgiving morning one day and having to chase a raccoon out of the house that had snuck in because the walls weren't even fully done. Like there was a way in through the cabinets. And there was like a raccoon in there, like a wild animal in the house in the small confined space. So yeah, it was always something going on over there, man.
That's amazing.
But yeah, we ended up, progressively getting a little bit more money and buying our first house, which needed a ton of work, and had 2 additional kids. And so now I have an 18-year-old son, a 13-year-old daughter, and a 10-year-old daughter.
So you have 3 kids.
So I have 3 kids, yeah.
Oldest is 18.
Oldest is 18, and then I got the two younger girls. And now we're comfortable, a lot more comfortable now, for sure.
It takes a little bit of time.
And now owning the CrossFit gym in Liberty Hill, and then working insurance also on the side to help pay for that.
Car insurance or like?
No, it's like a commercial workers' comp insurance.
Okay.
I work from home primarily, so it allows me. It's one of those things where I always tell people, I've over the past probably 10 years, I've started to come to the realization that happiness it should take precedent over everything. It should take precedent over the job you have, everything else. And the job that I have always had has been a job that I just never really cared for. But this particular position I have, nothing great, but it allows me the freedom to do what I love, which is owning that CrossFit gym and seeing those people every single day. So I'm able to justify my 9 to 4, 9 to 5 job by saying, if you had any other desk job, you'd never be able to come up here and meet these wonderful people at this gym every single day. And so that in itself makes it worth it.
Well, it's connected to something bigger.
Absolutely.
And I think that's one of those weird things. I wrote on it a couple of weeks ago where like, I don't think purpose for people is necessarily like, you always hear that, like, do what you love. You should always do what you love. Never settle, da, da, da. And it's like, yeah, but if you love, LARPing, it's not going to pay the bills, man. I'm sorry.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just one of those things where like, well, if whatever you do for a day job connects you to whatever you love and it's totally free.
Sure.
Like not free, but there's no monetization around it, but it fulfills you at the end of the day. Cause that's like, we didn't make money in the, like everybody thinks like gym owners like crush it. And it's like none of us, we're really legitimately in it just to like help people. Like we really just want people to just be better than they were. And so it's an interesting conversation because, like, we grinded the deal 5 years, 80 hours a week, just trying to have a place that I could go that was mine, that I built, that I could touch people and have really fulfilling relationships. Because I think everything revolves around relationships.
100%.
I think it's my driving focus. Like, I'm like you now. It's like if it's not happy anymore, if it doesn't add to my life, it's gone. It's like instantly gone.
That's something that I try to tell people a lot too. Is that I think we're not here long enough to be consumed with negative relationships, and I think that we're almost too hesitant or afraid to pull the trigger to say this is not adding any value to my life right now, and we need to get this out. And then once you finally cut that cord, you're going to notice that you're going to start to feel better, and you're going to start to develop another positive relationship, and you're really going to start to look at that in all aspects of your life, whether it's your diet or people in your life, family in your life. Like if it's causing some negative vibes constantly, something needs to change, or it's on you.
That's interesting. You just said that because I never really thought about using the word relationship with inanimate objects, food, cars, houses. Right. You have some kind of relationship with that, and it's like whether it's a healthy one or a negative one. So some of those are ultimately, I say some of those. I would argue that all of them are. Like, it sucks, man. You get married to the wrong person. It's like, well, I mean, dude, do you spend the 80 years of the rest of your life with the wrong person?
Yeah.
So people, there's like this, you never get divorced. You do it one time, da, da, da. I'm like, but what if you made a mistake, man? Like,
right.
So that's an interesting one because, I'm vocal about some of my stuff where, like, I don't have relationships with a lot of my family anymore. Like, I don't even talk to my mom and dad anymore. I haven't talked to them for probably 7 years. And you talk about shit being on a podcast, and we were talking about it earlier, where like people will kind of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, and I'm like, well, I can't believe that you think that just because we're blood that I have to keep that relationship in my life. Like if it wasn't adding any value, like it's not a fault on them.
Exactly.
I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm not saying there's anything against them. I'm just saying that where I'm at right now in this timeline, like they just don't fit.
You got to take care of you.
I don't know what you want me to do with that, but that's a super uncomfortable conversation for people. So what got you to that recently? Do you think that's just like an age thing? Do you think that's an experience thing?
Man,
Did something traumatic happen?
I think age plays a role in it. But when I had 1 year ago this past week, I suffered a stroke while I was coaching one of my CrossFit classes in the morning. And since then, I had to go to the hospital. I was there for 4 days. They ran a bunch of tests, and they basically told me, we don't know what caused this. Yeah. You're lucky that it didn't cause permanent damage and you can still move. but it might happen again. You know, that's kind of how they left it, because they were trying to find, they were thinking to themselves, okay, well, there might be a hole in this guy's heart, which would cause the blood clot to be shot through and sent to the wrong spots. None of that was the case. So they kind of were left with, we don't know. And and so that terrified me. I was like, I want you to tell me something is wrong with my heart.
So you're living with that?
Yeah. So I'm living with that, and the recovery process from that, when I went home, it was just, I mean, it was like I was a space cadet for probably 3 weeks. Like, I just couldn't focus right. You know, I felt like my skull and my head was just, my eyes were just knocked back 3 feet in my head. Like I was just looking through a tunnel. Couldn't remember anything, couldn't formulate words sometimes.
And that's a lot of physiological, just from like
whatever
happened to the body.
And my brain's trying, the synapses in my brain are trying to reconnect, trying to figure out, you know, to reprogram. And so that led to a lot of depression, which is very common in someone that suffers a stroke like that. So that started to really become a major factor in my life, and it started to get worse and worse and worse. And I tried to ignore it for the longest time. But it just couldn't. It would just come in waves, and it'd get pretty bad. Like, and I couldn't put my finger on what was causing it.
So you had no depression until.
I had some bouts with just what I thought was depression at the time, but it was really just unhappiness with work. Basically, it's like me wanting to make the gym my primary mode of my monetary, source, and not have to work at this job that I don't care for. And so I kind of in my head made myself seem like I was depressed for some reason. But after this stroke, it was just like a light went off, I guess, rather. And I just got so down. But I was able to hide it pretty well in front of people.
So that's one of those things where you acknowledge that, like, and I think, for most of us, that at least kind of read on stuff, because I'm always curious, like if I am feeling down or sad or whatever, Google is like 6 seconds away.
Right.
You can just Google anything. But for me, I was like, okay, am I creating this, which is one thing. Am I creating my own emotions? I'm reading a book right now, How Emotions Are Made. And they're literally like, they're all fabricated by man. We put words on them legitimately. Sure. And then there's legitimate neurological conditions, and then there's legitimate chemical imbalances. Mm-hmm. And so, like, what's really hard is, like, how do you know you don't have chemical imbalances or neurological issues, or if you're just creating a lot of that stuff? And I think that's where, for me, why I'm so adamant about searching inward. So I'm always connected to myself, so I know whether or not, am I just creating this shit, or do I have some kind of imbalance? And in your case, it's like, no, man, I had a fucking stroke, and like some shit's now miswired, and I'm trying to figure it out, Yeah,
so and I was almost ashamed of it, because I was like, why am I getting, like, I would just find myself crying for no reason. Like, this was happening like once or twice a month. Like, something would come up, and it would put me upset to where I'm not much of a crier, but that was happening a lot.
Yeah,
like I would just stand in front of the mirror and be like, what the fuck,
Yeah.
Why is this? Why did whatever happened that day? Why did your plans that got canceled on Saturday? Why is that making you? Is the most ridiculous thing.
Yeah, the smallest.
And so
things.
I knew something was really amiss there when that was starting to happen. Mm-hmm. And that slowly got worse and worse. And it kind of culminated just this past June, actually. My wife, it was my birthday, and it was Father's Day, and she had planned this surprise for me. And I've always dealt with anxiety a lot in my life. I get really nervous in situations where I don't exactly know what's fixing to happen.
You want to control some shit.
I need to control. I need to know what's going on. She was going to surprise me, so we're driving to this brewery. She's going to take me to this reggae show, which I like to watch reggae a lot. And it's one of those things where I know she doesn't want to go. She doesn't like that music.
Yeah,
She's going to do it for me,
Yeah.
And so we go in, and we sit down, and I order a beer, and it's just this awkward situation where I know she wants me to have a good time, but I don't know. I know she's not there. She's not really having a good time, and I don't know what to do. It's a weird situation. I don't know what to do. I'm sitting there panicking. It's hard to put into words. I just start sweating profusely. I have hyperhidrosis, so I'll just start sweating like crazy.
Yeah.
And I'll go into like a panic attack. And so she had planned all of this stuff to go on that day, and I just lost it. And I was like, we got to get out of here right now. And I'm just sobbing in the car. Like, I don't know what happened just now. Like, I felt like sweating. I felt like I was letting you down for some reason, and I have no idea why. And it just, that situation, which seems so small, put me into this spiral that day. And I just spiraled the whole way home. We drove the whole way home, and I'm just feeling worse and worse about myself. And all these thoughts are tumbling into my head like, you've been doing this way too long. This crying and this getting upset and then ignoring the kids because of it. It's having an effect on other people now. And you're slowly starting to become a burden. And that's the first time I felt like, I feel like I'm a burden to these people. And so we got home, and I said, you know what? I'm going to go up to the gym, and I'm going to clean it. Because I just had to get out of the house. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
I was like, I felt like I was in a tunnel right then, and I was like, I got to get out of here. And I leave, and she's kind of weirded out because she's like, I don't know what just happened. Because it's the most weirdest thing for someone just to react over something so small. And I remember thinking when I was in the room before I left, I was like, I just want her to hug me right now. I'm trembling. I just need, but she doesn't know. She's scared. She doesn't know why I'm reacting this way. And I go to the gym, and I'm sitting there, and I'm not cleaning. I'm just sitting there laying my head on a desk, and it's the first time in my life I've ever thought to myself, I think everybody involved would be better if I was not here anymore.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I thought to myself, okay, well, I'm going to put this plan in action, and I'm going to figure out a way to make this happen. It wasn't quite to that point, but it was definitely on the table, I guess you could say. Like,
you started questioning your own worth in this life.
100%. And it freaked me out because I mentioned this to someone else, told someone else this once over the past few weeks. And they were like, well, didn't you thinking about, your kids at home or the effect that it would have on your wife if you did something to yourself? Did that kind of... And I said, no. I said, no. When I was in that spot, there was nothing you could tell me that would make me feel any different. I said, I just wanted to be gone.
At peace, yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I expressed that on my first podcast where, I don't feel bad about it. I don't have regret about it. I don't have guilt around where I felt in that moment. But literally, in my own head, I would no, dude, go through all the shit that's good in your life that I had labeled that was supposed to be good in my life. Even though it was good in my life, I just was so fucking clouded with all my own bullshit. But I was like, I don't give a fuck about those kids.
Right.
I don't give a fuck about my marriage.
Right.
I don't care about any of that shit. Mine was attached to vengeance, and I mentioned that a little bit. But that whole thing where when you mentioned burden right there, I think that's probably a big piece for a lot of people where they do just feel like, man, I'm a fucking burden to a lot of people because I can see people caring for me, and I feel bad about that because they're having to put extra energy into me now.
Exactly, and that's exactly how I felt. Because I mean, my kids could recognize that would be upset, and they'd be like, and they would always use the term, "Are you feeling sick, Dad?" Because that's what the kind of term that we used in the house, and it broke my heart. Like I hated that. I hated that when that would happen, and it's just like all I was thinking was I'm causing them way much more harm being here at this moment. I feel that way.
Yeah.
And of course, fortunately for me, I have a very great relationship with my wife that I could actually go to her shortly after that and talk to her and, cry on her shoulder and talk me through that. And that alone kind of got me to the point where I was just thinking to myself, it makes my heart hurt for the people that don't have that person.
Yeah.
And they're just dealing with all these things on their own. They don't have a person to say, okay, I give up. Someone come help me. And they got nobody. It's just, it's heartbreaking to hear stories like that.
Yeah. I had a conversation with somebody once where they brought up that there was 3 spaces of communication. There's your internal dialogue, and then there's that communication you have with only one other person. Mm-hmm. And then there's everybody else. And I couldn't even imagine all the people in this world just going through without that one other person, whether it be a best friend or a mother or a father or a brother. And you're just your internal dialogue is your own shit. It's like you're having this conversation with yourself and you get zero perspective outside of your own head. Right. Which I think is such a scary place to be in.
It absolutely is.
As much as so you're kind of I don't want to say it awakening. I call them pivot points. I have a whole bunch of pivot points in my life where I'm like, dude, this definitely shaped me. This made me go, wait, fuck that path. I'm gonna journey this other road because this one looks a little sketchy to me, or whatever the case may be. And I have those definitive moments throughout my life. So that's why when you were talking about, like, was there a traumatic thing that got you realizing that, like, I'm only trying to find shit that adds value to my life anymore, and I'm not wasting any more energy on all this other bullshit. When you get in that space like that, where it is a pivot point, and you feel like you feel alone. It's like it's the most ridiculous thing, because like Danielle would be sitting right here and be like, dude, just talk to me. She would be grabbing me and like in a frantic panic, like, just talk to me. I'm here for you. You can tell me whatever you want. And you're so fucked up with like all the emotions of like, whether it's sadness or shame or guilt or regret of thoughts that you had. Because when I got to that point, I was way past where you were at. Not way past. I don't even know if there's a fucking scale.
Right.
I'm in this point. Where am I willing to go? But I mean, I remember like sleeping in a fucking closet with my pistol all day. Yeah. And just like, fuck, man, I wish I wasn't alone. And then Danielle would come home and be like, fucking talk to me. And I couldn't verbalize that to her. I couldn't admit that to her. I was so fucking ashamed that like I was 3 pounds away, because that's how much pressure it takes to fire a Glock. Like, I was 3 pounds away from this shit just being over. Like, that's how like fucked up. And that's how I was thinking. So like when you said that, man, that's just like one of those resonating moments where you're like, you feel so ashamed that you have emotions. Yeah. Which is fucking 100%.
Weird. Yeah. Fucking weird, you absolutely feel ashamed about it, for sure.
Which is super weird, because I don't get that, that whole like, I've had, so many people like, you wear too much emotions on your sleeves, and you're too much this and you're too much that. And then it's like, I see their fucking train wreck and downfall, 5 years from now, because they've compartmentalizing and bottling everything up. I saw it in my own wife. Like, when everything kind of exploded, it was like, I didn't really get any emotions out of her for 15 fucking years, because it just slowly got more shut off and more shut off and more numb and more numb. And she had zero vulnerability when it came to just her own self. Right. Which you can start seeing that path of like self-destruction on what you're actually looking for. You don't even know what the fuck you're looking for anymore. So I don't even know, do you have like anything that you can like recollect that to, or connect that to, just like growing up, where you're like, so how did I get so like fucking bottled up and ashamed to be emotional?
I don't really know. I think when I was growing up, I was one of the ones that was always taught that, and this is nothing against my upbringing whatsoever. My parents were just the parents that said, when you grow up, you're going to go to high school, you're going to go straight to college, you're going to get a job, and you're going to have family, kids. That's what you're going to do. My father worked a job that he didn't really care much for. He worked his ass off. My mom worked as well. And so I thought that was kind of what I was supposed to do. You end up saving your money, and then ultimately when you're about 60, 65, 70, you're going to retire, and that's going to be where you enjoy your life. And so in the back of my mind, that's all I've been taught. Is that's what I need to get done. I need to go get this job. I need to get my degree, go get that job right out of college where I'm going to get paid $35,000. Then it's going to start to slowly build up. Yeah. I'll make that 6 digits, and then I'm going to be working my ass off, but I'll have 3 kids, and then I'll have a boat and this and that. And then we'll save some money and we'll have fun whenever we're 60. And whenever I had the stroke, it started to kind of kick in my mind, like, look, dude, I was like, you lived a healthy life. I mean, I don't really drink that much. I eat great. I take care of my body. And then, the stars align, and they're like, well, you're going to have a fucking stroke today. Bang. And we might kill you today.
Let's test your body.
Yeah, let's see what happens. And it kind of made me realize, like, the fact that I even think that I might live to 60 is the cockiest fucking thing I could think of.
It's insane.
I mean, if I lived to 40, man, like, that's what, we don't know. And so I've tried to be more present in recognizing, hey, is this something that I should jump on? This situation, should I go on this adventure? Yes. I start to pull the trigger a lot quicker now.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of changed the way, and I know then same thing goes along with what we were talking about earlier with negative relationships. I realize I don't have time for that, I need to get those out of my life. I don't want those things wearing on me, causing me any more stress than I need right now.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, this made me realize life is way too short to sit here and mess around with bullshit all the time. And I need to cut a lot of it out of my life.
Well, you've been given that, like, and this is where I was listening to, I forget what podcast it was. It was like a podcast / interview, but it had this Rachel Hollis. Mm-hmm. It's the book I'm reading right now, so she's like top of mind for me. But I was listening to an interview that Bethany shared with me the other day, and she says when you start coming on trauma, there's two paths. You either learn from that shit, or you let it victimize you and enable you to just be fucked up around it. And I think what ends up happening to people, whether you want to call it trauma, and I think there's different levels of things, but very rarely are people given the gift of mortality. Like, you understand that, like, dude, we're not immortal in this motherfucker, and like, I'm going to show you you're not. And there's only a handful of people that really have that. And so that's one thing, man, I fucking love that you talk about that shit, and that's part of your story, because it's like, I don't think there's enough people that actually talk about those things. Like, there's a lot of times where I was fucking standing on some field in Iraq and mortars were coming in, and I was like, what? Let's see what the fuck happens, man. Like,
I could not imagine, man.
You can't run, because you just, maybe you run into one, so you just kind of just fucking lady luck on this one. And I think I was blessed, and I didn't really start kind of thinking about a lot of this stuff, but, you know, for 3 or 4 months, it was every day for 3 months. I was just like, I was given this gift every day for 3 fucking months, and if I was going to make it out of here alive, I can either let that fucking thing victimize me in some way, or I'm going to be like, oh, no, I had the gift to understand that, like, that at any moment, it could be snapped from you.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful.
And so I think that gift, you know, people learn it either with time and seasoning and experience and a little bit of wisdom gained from all of that stuff, or you're giving it in one instant. Now, I don't know why we're given that in specific instances, why some people are like, bang. But I think that's why I love podcasts so much. I think that's why I love individuals that'll go out and like talk about that story and be vulnerable about it, because there's a lot of people that are just fucking unconscious.
Yeah, 100%.
Unconscious.
Yeah.
They're just like, dude, I'm just waiting on my retirement. Like, exactly what you're saying. I'm waiting on my retirement so I can live my life. It's
and
like,
I'm just like, what are you going to do at 65? Like,
what
are you going to do at 65? Like, we were joking about that on the podcast the other day. I was like, what trip are you going to take when you're 70? You're not flying on a plane 24 hours across the world. That's not happening when you're 70 years old.
Man, I hope I'm still moving when I'm 70.
Me too.
But I'm not going to take the fucking gamble.
Yeah,
it's just not.
It doesn't make any sense to me. I just completely, that helped throw that out of there. And then I've learned to utilize social media to find positive influences in my life as well. And I kind of cut out the negative ones. It's a lot easier to cut out the negative ones on there for sure.
Super easy.
But yeah, I mean, I think that in the world of where we're getting all of our information from our phones, it can lead to a lot of questioning your self-worth when you see people posting nothing but the positive things, not even necessarily the positive things, just these kind of showy things, you know what I'm saying? So what I've tried to do, like personally with me, is I try to share a little bit of both. I try to share a little bit about some of the positive things that I do, not in a showy way, but just to kind of say, hey, look, this is the way that I'm trying to live my life, and I'm finding a lot of benefit from it. But here's also some of my downfalls. Here's some of the things that you wouldn't expect, because I'm smiling all the time, but I'm also dealing with a lot of depression. And I found that through podcasts and through talking to people like in these conversations, when you hear other people share this information, it makes you realize that you're not alone.
Not alone, instantly.
And that's some of the most valuable things that I've ever. I started therapy recently after this last kind of bout with depression, like I was referencing in June. So I said, I got to go see a therapist. And so I started doing that, and how much better I felt after talking to somebody and just laying it all out there. Someone I didn't know.
Unbiased.
Just laying it out, everything I could talk about. I think I cried in front of her like the first day. But I felt so much better. And then I tried to use that same kind of momentum to do that in my own personal relationships with my wife and some of my really close friends. Yeah. And that's kind of what led into us starting that podcast, is we were doing that same thing. And I was like, let's start recording this, because this is as much therapy for me as it was for them.
So now that's the first time you started doing therapy in your entire life?
Yeah. Because I've always been under the impression that, I was always one of those guys where I was like, I'm not going to pay, someone $150 an hour for them just to hear me talk. I didn't understand,
Yeah.
why someone would do that.
Yeah.
But then my wife.
What do you attribute that to? Like a specific characteristic? Pride, ego?
Probably ego.
Pride and ego?
I think that was really what it boiled down to. I just felt like I was smarter than that.
Yeah.
But I didn't need that. Like if I could talk it out, then I could probably just work it out of my own
How
head.
fucking arrogant
Exactly.
for us to be like,
it's ridiculous.
I don't need that shit. I know how to fix this.
Yeah,
and then you just fucking struggle for 3 years. You're like, I didn't know how to fix it.
And all it took for me, I mean, like the amount of progress that I made in that 1 hour was unbelievable. Like I was just like, wow, I left there feeling like, oh my God, I feel like we got something done today.
Yeah.
And use that as a tool to kind of use that same kind of rationale with my wife as well, talking to her about everything. And that's one of the things that we've changed in our relationship that's helped us, last 17 years we've been married, is that open line of communication. Like I literally tell her everything now.
Everything.
And that has helped so much because she knows, she can see when I'm going through something, and she asks me. I'm used to, 5-6 years ago, she'd be like, "What's wrong?" Oh, I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm busy. Work got me. Something along those lines.
And she knows.
She always knows.
Yeah.
And now it's just like I just straight up tell her, like, I feel this wave of depression coming on. I'm panicked right now. I have no idea why. And we've kind of developed these little ways of dealing with it and to make it better. And I cannot say enough good things. I don't know where I'd be without her. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think that's so hard. Where like I talk with a lot of people now, and I'm like, look, you should have people in your life that add. They shouldn't complete. They should never complete you. You should be never looking for relationships to fill holes in yourself.
Right.
But it definitely minimizes and mitigates the wear on you as an individual when you have somebody that adds to your life like that. So I think that people get that twisted where they're like, no, that person, they're completing all these holes and all these things I hate about myself, and that's why I need them here, and that they help me get through. I don't know, and it always turns back to like, I don't know where I'd be today without her. Yeah, that's true, but you'd be okay without her. That's a hard thing to accept because I'm like that. Like but Danielle's like, I mean, people are like, how in the fuck did you guys get to where? I said, because like that's my wife. Like that's just it. There's never been a question in my mind. We were always going to figure this shit out. We were always going to figure out a way to get through this. But one of the biggest things I learned this year, I was thinking about this before you came in. I don't know why. I was soaking in the bathtub actually, because I had exercised and I'm like fucked up from Brazilian jiu-jitsu yesterday. Yeah. Because I'm like been hanging out with Tim Kennedy lately, and he's like,
I saw you posting a bunch of pictures with him.
He's just a fucking mean dude, man. In a good way. I say that in a good way. But I never really saw it. It could have just maybe been unconscious, or maybe I think it was arrogance and ego and pride is what made me think I was better than I actually was. Like, oh, I can fucking be an SF guy because nobody can fucking tell me I can't, and I can do this. And oh, we're gonna be married forever because people say you can't get married young and you're gonna make it, and da 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 da. And oh, you're not gonna be good at owning your own gym because fucking X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, that was all like pride and ego. That wasn't. Right. That was an actual like confidence and self-love and some other stuff. And I didn't really realize how that existed in me until I lost everything. Because this year in January, I mean, I lost almost every relationship. And I say lost. I pushed and I removed myself from everything. Right. Because in my own head, it just seemed like there was too much trauma and sadness and emotional attachment to it, and I needed to go.
I understand that.
But when I did that, I had to look at it and go, because now like special forces, like I had to take a step back from that. My gym, I had to take a step back from that. All my partnerships and my relationships, they're gone. Everybody I was coaching, gone. I was at a point where I was going to leave my wife and move to Arizona and just live with my aunt and uncles for a bit until I figured out what the fuck I was doing with my life. And at that moment, I didn't really realize how capable I actually really was internally until all of it was gone in my head.
Right.
Because it was gone. I was checked out. I was like, gym, fucking gone. See you. Like, and I had washed my hands of everything. Our houses, our fucking, all our friends. I mean, we left that house as was. So like everything in here, there's a few remnants left of that old house, and that's it. Because it was just like, nope, I'm out. Fucking check the fuck out. So it was like 37 years old, almost starting over. That's what I felt like. I'm tangibly, materially starting over.
Yeah, it's a scary spot to be in.
But it wasn't. What I didn't realize was that was all bullshit. Because it doesn't mean a fucking thing. Like I could go out and buy new couches and fucking tables and cars with a simple application, and they're going to give me more money. Right. That's how fucked up this fucking society is to an extent. But emotionally, I didn't really understand that like I had everything I fucking needed to survive in this world with nothing else. And that my own joy and my own emotions were mine, and not until that moment did I realize that I actually owned them, and I really started to embrace them for what they were. And so, because at one point me and Danielle sat down and we were like, man, let's figure out how to raise these kids together. You'll always be my best friend. Like we had fucking 18 years together, but like, I don't know if you're good for me anymore.
Right.
Like there could be too much damage. I don't know. We need to sit down and explore this for what it is. I'm not saying it's over, because we'd fucking tumbled for a couple of months trying to like figure out if that was going to realign. But not until I sat back and lost everything did I really actually realize how much value and how much I actually really didn't need anything else. I didn't need, special forces tabs and fucking Ranger tabs, and I didn't need, $500,000 gym, and I didn't need, these fucking houses, and I didn't need my wife. Kids are a little bit different because someone else's life is in your hands, legitimately.
Most definitely.
So that's always a different, hard conversation. But I talked on my last podcast. I was like, man, if I fucking left this world tomorrow, it would be peaceful, because the only things that I really have an obligation to are my kids right now, technically, because I'm taking care of them. I'm providing them all their logistics for them to become adults.
Right.
But they would be 100% fine. Like, would it fucking suck? For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what we've provided to them up until this point, they'd be good. So if I step back and look at everything past that, it's like, oh, okay, I didn't really realize that I have everything I need just dwelling inside my own self. Which was really weird, because I really didn't start thinking about that till today. I think maybe it was subconscious to an extent. They're like, oh, okay, cool, because I don't ever want to be and I think maybe this is probably a defense mechanism too, is that when I had all these crutches set up that were holding me up, gym, military, family, wife, I had all these crutches. When they all fucking fell apart, I was like, I'm fucking tumbling. I'm falling, when I didn't realize that, like, no, I'm standing on my own 2 fucking feet, and all those other things are just sitting in a backpack, and they add value to my life. So that was an interesting, weird space to be in before. I don't know why I was thinking about that before you came here, but I think it was just because the last podcast where you started talking about your stroke a little bit and stuff, and I was trying to think, when I got to the point of losing everything, why did that shift me internally so much? Like, what happened right there? What did I recognize? And I think for me, that's what it was. So, and that's what I enjoy about all these different podcasts and stuff, man. Because like listening to your guys's and like hearing other people with like some similarities, like married, young, kids, gym owner, didn't really start battling like depression until something really traumatic happened. And then me just like kind of listening to this vulnerability and being like, man, how in the fuck did I get to where I'm at today? Which is, again, going back to those is why, I appreciate you so much for coming out and even just sharing a lot of this shit, man, because I don't know, those internal dialogues never get you here.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, most definitely. Yeah, yeah.
Until you're in a space where you're hearing other human beings express their perspectives and perceptions on things.
I think males especially really don't do this enough. I think that there's more of a thing where females will get together and they'll talk out their problems, but I think males are too proud most of the time. Yeah. And so they don't share. They'll share some things, but they won't really be vulnerable with each other. And I think that, when you start to hear that, just as a listener of a podcast or a radio show, whatever it may be, it helps so much. I mean, I get therapy from listening to podcasts. I get therapy from listening to the radio station. There's a radio show I listen to every morning that a guy's just vulnerable as hell, and it just helps me so much. Maybe vulnerable too much, but I enjoy it, man. I can respond to it because there's certain things that I don't want to admit that he admits, and I'm like, I do that too.
Yeah, you're like, it gives you that, like, it's such a weird. That's why I think social media is so powerful, because that's the connection. Like before social media, what was it? It was fucking books, and newspapers, going to the library and like reading some shit and being like, wait a second, this story sounds like my shit, and someone wrote this. So either they imagined it or they experienced it. You know, and so it's like now it's just the information is so fast. It's coming in so fast. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I think you can look at it from so many different ways. I mean, I watch my children that get involved into social media too. And it bothers me because, you know, I have one daughter that's a big introvert, and she sees all these other friends of hers, you know, or people in her class having a great time, and she's just a quiet person. So I know for her, it's just kind of a negative thing for her, and I hate that. And then for myself, I've learned to, like I said, cut out a lot of the negative stuff that I see, because I don't enjoy scrolling through Instagram, whatever it may be, and just seeing people show off this, show off that. It just drives me nuts. I'm like, I'm more of a humble person. I just don't. If it's not something that's going to add value to someone else, I really don't choose to share it.
It's super weird too how you get your own brain going through like the cycle of, because I find myself doing it. I'm like, okay, I want this caption to add value to somebody's life. And the next thing I know, 30 fucking minutes goes by, and I'm like, because I type it on my computer first in Notes. And then I cloud it to my phone and copy and paste. Just because doing my thumbs, I just don't like
I don't either.
And I find myself sometimes I'm like doing this and I'm like trying to find a photo, and I'm like, fuck, man, what one connects to this? And I start getting wrapped into this thing where it's like, dude, I'm letting social media now control my own behavior for 30 minutes because I'm trying so hard to add value to somebody else's life. It's met with good intent, but at what point does like your intent get lost because now you're fucking sucked into losing your own energy in some shit that might not even be received. Because and again, I'm trying to predict the way people are going to respond to how I'm feeling, and I'm second guessing my own fucking feelings. It's such a weird ass thing to me, man.
It is, man. And I've tried to. A lot of my stuff is really geared towards almost giving myself a pep talk for something that I'm dealing with. And I'll write a caption on a post, whatever it may be, that might word it in a way that is sent out to other people, but 9 times out of 10, it's something that I'm struggling with currently, and I want to share it without saying, "Wah, I'm having this problem." You know what I'm saying? Like I don't want sympathy from people, but I feel like I've kind of grown to realize that a lot of the problems that I'm dealing with, somebody else is dealing with those same problems. Someone is.
Yeah, that's a social media world, man. It's such a crazy.
It's very interesting, man. The effect that it plays on people is absolutely astounding. I've realized it with running it from a business perspective with the gym, running it on the personal on my own end. It's always it's a weird game, man.
Yeah. So if you don't mind me, I kind of want to shift just a little bit, because like I'm always fascinated with a million topics, obviously. But one thing, a perception that you have, I think that I had at one point was, and I still have it. I say that I had at one point, but it's like your family life, man. Like when you guys look at like there's so much like emotion and honesty in some photos that you see with some people. It's like there's a difference. You can legitimately see like Christmas cards where you're like, man, this fucking family all wants to strangle themselves. And then there's the people that are like, man, these they actually had a great time taking this photo together, which seems like, you know, maybe hopefully my perception is correct, but because I've only met your wife a couple of times, and I don't even know if I've even met your kids, maybe at like a, you know, Christmas vlog event somewhere or something. But is that like pretty even keel for you for the most part? Is it like is it a peaceful relationship for the most part across the board?
It is. I'm sure people listening to this are like, whatever, roll their eyes. But
yeah.
But I've actually
is he going to throw his wife under the bus?
Yeah,
right now?
No. But I've actually been very fortunate, man. I'm not saying that our marriage is perfect by any means. I mean, we still have our arguments, and we go through our ups and downs for sure. But I think we hit a point, you know, a while back where we, like I said earlier, we realized that communication was really the key, and really expressing when we're upset and saying why and having a conversation, as opposed to what I used to do. Leslie and myself are different in a way that she wants to get a problem resolved immediately. Like if she sees something that's off, we're talking about it now. I'll bottle it up, sleep on it, talk about it in the morning. That's how I always was. Well, that doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
No, and it really, it's not just to concede to her, but it's the best way to get it done. Just talk it out. Let's get it over with. And so we kind of changed the way that we approached any kind of disagreement that we might have, and that's made a huge difference in our marriage. We've also just been very lucky, man. When you look at us getting involved with each other in high school, I mean, I don't share this with a whole lot of people. I met Leslie when I was, like I said, a sophomore, and I was obsessed with her. Leslie is the only person that I've slept with in my life, and I share that with people. I share that with people, and people they're like, "What? That's so weird to them." And I'm thinking, that's not weird to me. I found someone that I was so infatuated with, and I was like, "Hey, I hit a home run right at first bat, sure man." Yeah,
dude, it's so funny, man. Because
I grand slammed it. I don't need to go up to bat again, brother.
It's so funny. Danielle's the only person I've ever been with, so that's a. People are like, what?
Yeah.
And apparently there's a term for it. What was somebody calling it the other day?
I don't know. People call me an idiot, but I don't know what the term you're
saying. No, there's something else. It's called so there's all these weird terms apparently. So in the gay community, they call them gold medal unicorns or something.
Really?
Or they call them unicorns if you end up, there's one where it's a gay guy that's never been with a woman. And then there's the full-blown virgin.
Yeah.
And they have these different term formats, like the unicorn, and then there's the gold medal unicorn, and the something. And I was like, well, is there one for the straight guys?
I'll just call her my unicorn.
Do we have a phrase?
But yeah, that's something that I'm personally proud of. I think that was a big thing for me. So, but yeah, it's taken a lot of work, and it's taken a lot of sitting down and talking about this and talking about that. And we've had our blow-ups, like I said, but, we share the same outlook on life. We love to travel. We love to have experiences. We love to give experiences to our children. And we're a good balance. I'm usually pretty high-strung, which most people don't typically think. They think I'm pretty chilled most of the time. But I'm one of the people that is always thinking that he needs to be doing something at all times. Like if I rarely sit down and watch TV and relax.
You got to feel like you're being productive.
I'm like, what could I be doing right now with this time? Yeah. Whereas she is super chill. Like, if we need to be somewhere, if we had to come here at 7:30, she would have been getting ready at 7:25. We'll figure it out. We'll get there. She's always just a couple minutes later, right on time.
So funny, man. You're like Danielle, and I'm like Leslie. And it's so funny that with all the relationships that I have these conversations with people, I find so many parallels where I'm like, damn, you're me and he's her, or he's her, and it's like, because I'm like that. I'm like, I was walking around with no shoes on and my shirt off when you knocked on the door. And I came over here and put my shoes on real quick and put a shirt on and walked over to answer the door because I was like.
And I was sitting outside of my car for probably 15 minutes just drinking water.
I was keeping it on my phone. I was like, I wonder if he's a guy that shows up 15 minutes early, or is he going to be here at 7:29?
Yeah, I was out there in my car just listening to the radio. Yeah, because I hate being late. But yeah, I'm super high strung when it comes to that stuff. So we're a good balance. She can really dial me back and say, listen, you need to chill out for a second. And we always joke about she's terrified to fly. She will not get on a plane.
Really,
it just freaks her out so much because she's afraid. She doesn't like to be out of control, and she's afraid it's going to crash. And I always joke with her. I said, what's funny is that when I get on a plane, I said it's probably the most relaxed I ever have been because I know there's nothing I can do.
Nothing you can do. Yeah,
this plane might crash. There's nothing. There's nothing I can do right now to save my life.
You've given all control. over
I'm in the air and I'm at the mercy of someone else. And for some reason, it's one of the most freeing times for me. So I love flying.
I think you should tell her that you're statistically more likely to get bit by a shark.
I've hit her with it all.
Killed by bees. than you were dying in a plane crash.
Yeah, no, I've hit her with it all.
She's non-rational about it.
She's over it.
That's amazing. So now, have you guys had any full? Again, I go back to pivot points, but do you have any moments where you're like, we're out. This is it. This is too much. This is...
I haven't had a moment in our 17 years of marriage where I told myself that I feel like this might end in divorce. That's never... That moment hasn't been there. And I'm not saying that it won't at some point, but it hasn't yet. We've had some points in our marriage where there was that dip for 3 months or something where it's almost like you're friends in the house. If that
roommates.
Makes sense. Yeah, roommates. Yeah. You do that roommate thing, and I think that's very common in a lot of marriages.
I think that's important for people to hear that. like just relationships in general are going to have it runs on a wave.
Sure.
Like there's highs and low points even
Yeah.
in marriage relationships, but to understand that energy sometimes is just going to be what it is. And as long as you're unconditionally committed, you're going to make a whole bunch of fucked up mistakes, but you'll always come out of the other side with
Exactly.
it. And if you're not unconditionally committed, and I think that's a conscious thing that like, because me and Danielle were unconditional. I think she questioned it at one point in her life, obviously. But even with that, after it happened, she was like, fuck, I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
And then she explored whatever for 4 or 5 years and then was like, holy shit, I'm unconditionally committed on this other side. And I didn't even realize it because I'm over here self-sabotaging my own self and trying to find my own shit. But at the same time, realizing that like, I've got to figure out a way to get through this so I can be with this dude forever. Like this is where I want to be. And so we've just kind of been on that, like, are we unconditionally committed to each other? And in this moment and trying to move forward, I've known that from the moment I'm like you, I'm like, fucking hit the jackpot here on this one.
Yeah.
And like, I'm on autopilot till I fucking die. Like that's just how my brain operates. And people are like, yeah, but you're super emotional. I'm like, yeah, but once I'm like unconditionally committed to something, it takes a lot. And I've been fucking tested for sure.
Right, sure.
Because like, you know, I get it all the time. They're like, dude, you're the only dude I've ever met that fucking stayed.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I mean, thanks. I don't know if that's a compliment or what the fuck that is. But
I think it's pretty admirable, man. I think I think people can judge that in so many different ways, and it bothers me when you look at someone that's in that situation and they're deciding to find happiness. How anybody could be against that bothers me. I don't understand that.
Super
like I don't how you can throw your own emotions into someone else's relationship. Yeah. It's just like, leave it the fuck alone.
I could never do that. I could never do that. And it's like, you know, I think those are conversations that I even had in my head back in 2011 was like, okay, if she did have an affair and it ever comes out, like, can you forgive this? Mm-hmm. And so I was already like trying to formulate that plan in my own head just in case it ever came out.
Right.
Because, you know, back to Leslie's point where you're like, yeah, she knows when I'm like, no, I'm cool. Mm-hmm. She fucking knows. And so like when I would have conversations with Danielle, I'd be like, no, I fucking know something's wrong and you'll tell me in your own time.
Right.
It took 6 fucking years, but
yeah.
and some other shit to come out. But, you know, we always knew, and I think that's an interesting thing for people to really like kind of sit back and like, you're not fucking fooling anybody.
Right.
You think you are. You think you're just like, oh man, she has no clue, he has no clue, and it's like, no, they fucking know, man.
Yeah.
They just don't know exactly what it is. They don't know the specifics.
But something's up.
They know something's off, man. I mean, not everybody's an empath to an extent where they feel even just strangers, but you become connected empathetically to an extent when you spend enough time with somebody where you fucking know when something's off and wrong, man. So, man, it's really good to hear that like y'all have found that early. We call it festering. Like we don't let anything fester. Yeah. Not anymore. Because like the moment you let that thing go an hour or 2 hours or a day, like you just lose fucking time. And I'm into a point now where I'm like, I'm not giving away moments anymore.
Yeah, it's not worth it. We're not here for that. Like I said, I'm a firm believer in the fact that we're here for a short time, and you don't want to give away.
You're giving away
these these moments that could be so magical, and you're just throwing them away because your pride is too. You have too much pride to say, "Hey, listen, I messed up here." Or I'm having this issue that I didn't want to bring up to you because I didn't want to cause a fight, and I've kind of learned to move past that, and then let's just get this out.
And so do you connect that a lot to like just that experience in general, or is it like kind of a combination of a lot of things?
It's a combination of a lot of things. I mean, I've learned so much from her. She's taught me a lot of that because like she's just has a different. She's a very alpha style personality, and when she sees something, and she's a very caring individual too. So when she sees someone that's hurting, she wants to fix it.
She wants to fix it.
Yeah. And so that's helped kind of pull me out of just saying, I'll just compartmentalize this. I'll just deal with this on my own. Sleep on it. I'll be fine in the morning, which 9 times out of 10 I wouldn't be. We would just walk around like gunslingers for the first 2 hours of the morning the next day. Man. You know, this is the way we would do it. But no, she's helped me a lot so that I can grow and be a better person. And I don't know. that's one of those things when you talk about like if she were to be outside of my life, I've actually thought about that, and I just immediately panic because I don't know what I would do without having her in my life.
That. She's giving you that perspective that you almost need daily to like fill the gaps in some of your own shit.
Yeah, most definitely.
That's an interesting perspective for sure. What do you think, like, because we do it a lot, like we want to, I've been really big about this lately is like, you know, Danielle's been doing this and she's been doing that because what she's done over the past 6 months, what she's done in 18 years in our marriage just astounds me on so many different levels and so many different degrees. But especially over the past 6 months is like, we always want to like, but have you ever sat back and like kind of embraced and owned your own shit on what you've added to her life? Like, do you ever attach to like something specific where you're like, I've taught her this and I've given her that, and I've, you know, whether it be like specific emotions, specific characteristics, breaking some molds?
You know, I almost feel like, I don't know, I guess my level of self-confidence isn't high enough to do that, I guess. I don't know. I feel like, I'm sure if you asked her, she would say, yeah, I've learned this from Brandon. But for me to say what she's learned, it makes me feel weird to even try to say what I think I've taught her. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just, it's strange to me. I mean, I think that in a way, I have opened her mind a little bit to, you know, just saying, hey, we need to take advantage of every possible experience we can while we're here. Because I've really tried to instill that upon her. Like, I want to go see this. I want to go see that. I think that experiences are much, much more valuable than material possessions. And so we're taking these road trips all the time. Every chance we get, we're going to go somewhere and go see this and go see that. And I've gotten her excited about that.
Yeah.
Broken her out of the mold of wanting to go to just these touristy destinations and let's just go somewhere and just backpack it somewhere. You know,
being a little bit more spontaneous.
Yeah, exactly.
To an extent. So if you can't specifically pinpoint to, what do you think, like, what's one of the biggest things that you're trying to, because I think that we all have like these different things that we're trying to give to the world, at least people that are awake. You know, you have something that's powerful and you're passionate about that you want to give to others. What do you think that you're trying to like pour into the universe and trying to pour into the world as far as like interactions you have with people? Because obviously gym owners, we have a very intimate connection to humans. Like, it just is what it is. And so it's like, we can say, oh, I just want to make people fit, or I want people to PR their back squat, or all these different kinds of weird things. But like, I like to hear the higher order thinking around like what that's about. What do you think you're trying to like, I don't want to use legacy. I don't want to use, you know, like at the end of the day, like what gets you sleeping peacefully at night knowing that like, man, that fucking conversation I had with so-and-so at coffee, I left him with a little piece of myself.
Sure.
And I feel good about that today. Like, what do you think?
I think one of the biggest things that I like to get across to people is to tell them not to settle. I think that in today's society, we settle on what we think that is supposed to make us happy. What's the nuclear family? You know, what's the house and the car and the 3 kids, and we tell ourselves this is happiness, even though we don't feel it. And we settle on a job that we don't really care for. We settle on a relationship with our spouse that's not ideal, whether it's a physical relationship with them or an emotional relationship with them. We settle on our jobs, and that's what I'm trying to get across to people is stop settling. I mean, we're worth so much more, and we're capable of so much more. I just think people are sometimes just scared to pull the trigger to make that change. And they could increase their happiness exponentially. And I think that's really what it boils down to, not what people are telling you is happiness. What is your true happiness? And if you can really look inside and find what that is, and that's a hard thing in itself, really look inside and say, what's really going to make me happy? But once you find that, develop a plan. And it's not always going to be the easiest, straightforward plan, but start to make it happen, because I promise it'll be worth it in the end once you start to do that.
Yeah, it's a scary fucking place to be in, though, because it's like, we mentioned it on the last conversation, is like when you start creating honesty around yourself, especially if you've been going 10 years being a little bit disingenuous, where you've settled for other people's expectations
Mm-hmm.
of what you should be doing. I like that word settle because to me it represents like complacency.
Right.
And which I just can't do that. I can't just be like, this is it.
Right.
Like, no, even if there's there's another higher level of joy and peace and connection and, you know, all these different things. People would argue like, well, if you're looking for more of that, then there's also going to be more pain associated with it. And I'm like, well, yeah, okay, cool, perfect.
Right.
Because like that's how you feel the next level of X. Like you have to have some failure in there and some kind
absolutely.
of some other
And there's a
bullshit.
lot of experience to be gained by that.
Yeah.
I think people get so afraid of failure, and that's what I try to tell my son right now. Is I'm like, you graduated high school. You don't have to go to college right now. I want you to go. I mean, think about it. I mean, I graduated high school, went to college, and immediately had a baby. So I had a lot of responsibilities. I said, you don't have that right now. So graduate, go experience some stuff, make some mistakes. Because these are the mistakes that you're going to make right now that you can actually fix.
Yeah.
It's the ones the mistakes that are going to be much harder to fix is when you've got 3 kids, a mortgage, a job. I was like, go travel, go see the world, go see things, find something that you're passionate about, and then come back, and then let's develop a plan. And if it involves college, let's do that. You know, that's what I'm trying to force him to do. I say force. I'm trying to encourage him to do because I think that so much can be gained from that, and I think it's a different way of parenting that not a whole lot of people do. I think it's our schools kind of just shuffle these kids through and say, this is the path, you know, into debt immediately. And I'm amazed.
You guys talk the same shit we do, man. Because my son's 17, he graduates this year, and my wife found this military 14-month job for graduating high school kids, and it's in Germany. It's in some resort in the mountains somewhere, and you're paid. Your food's provided. Your housing's provided. It's 14 months. They provide you everything, and you get paid. Wow. And I'm like, dude, Germany's 2 hours to like 10 different countries, literally, in any direction. And he's like, oh, he's already applying for Texas State and all this other kind of shit. And I'm like, dude, man, you can take 14 months off. I promise you, it's not that big of a deal. And I kind of joke with him. I'm like, you know, because like we knocked our wives up super early. Yeah. We were 3 weeks in, and Danielle got pregnant 4 weeks in or whatever it was. And I'm like, dude, like go knock some chick up in Romania and Czech Republic. Or you know, I always joke with them. I'm like, dude, there's so much. Like, there's just that's one of the things that I did take for granted a little bit in the beginning, and I'm trying to like kind of time travel a little bit to absorb some of those experiences and some of those cultures and some of those, you know, sitting on a concrete floor in Thailand while the tattoo artist's wife's cooking dinner for me. I don't know what she's cooking. And their kids are running around, and there's a monk walking in the jungle, and I'm getting a traditional tattoo on my chest underneath his house, and it's the only house within a couple mile radius in the middle of the jungle. And you know, there's obviously language barrier and there's all this other kind of stuff. And in the moment, you're just kind of like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I'm getting tattooed in the middle of a jungle with a stick with printer ink. And there's this monk walking, and this lady's cooking me some food, and I don't know what the fuck this is, you know? And in the moment, I didn't really take advantage of it to, like, get to know that dude's kids and what they're doing and talk with his wife and what she's cooking and how she cooked that. And because those are the things now that I sit back and I'm like trying to, it's why we focus so much on like mindfulness. Like, I wish sitting in that situation, I would have understood like, hey, what do you do for your kids about this? And how does your wife going about making this meal with this? What type of meat do you guys eat here in Thailand? I have no idea what was in any of that shit. I just ate it because I was trying to be nice. You know, and so those are like the things that I'm trying to get him to like, man, if you could have at least gone and did all those things at 18, and then, you know, at 25, you're trying to process what all of that was instead of at almost 40, trying to process what that stuff was. You're going to take those experiences now moving forward into your 30s and 40s, man. It's just, there's so much wisdom to be gained from hanging out with just different human beings in a different culture and a different outlook. And
that's what I was telling my son too, is whenever, I guess it was now 2 years ago, I had met a friend of mine that's a big Instagram guy, fitness guy by the name of Dave Driscoll that worked out in Houston. And I developed a relationship with him. And prior to when he moved to Bali, to Indonesia, to open up his own gym there, and kind of kept in correspondence with him. And he kept telling me, "Hey, man, you need to come here. Come out here. Let's hang out for like a couple weeks. We'll work out. You can explore." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, we'll see." You know, and I didn't. I was like, Leslie's not going to fly 24 hours. You know, there's no way. And then a few weeks down the road, Leslie was like, "Just go. Just you need to go. This is an experience that you want to do, and I don't want to hold you back." And so she ended up buying the ticket, and I flew over there. And
she didn't go because she didn't want to fly.
Right.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah. No. Like, she ghosted the whole trip, so it was just me solo. and I've never really I travel all over the United States, but I've never really traveled international. And this is going from Moscow, Singapore, to Bali.
It's a long flight.
Yeah, it's a crazy flight. Very eye opening for me, especially just solo. So it was quite an experience for me. But when I got there, it was so beautiful because it allowed me to kind of, and Dave was great about it too, to just say, "Hey, listen, rent this motorcycle and just drive every day. Just go, experience." And that's basically what I did every day. I just cruised that little moped around, 40, 60 miles. That's all I was doing, just driving all over, just trying to get lost. And nobody spoke English, and it was one of the most treasured experiences I'll ever have, because I felt like I grew so much as an individual, because I've never really been put in a situation like that before. And that's what I wanted for my son, and I want for all of my kids, actually, to go see something like that and see what there is out there, not just what we're kind of programmed to think is the way of life. And you see these people living over there that are just living this beautiful life. Obviously, it appears stress-free. I'm sure there's lots of stress over there as well, but they're living a different life. There's just a sense of happiness that was there, that was hard to deny, and it was really sad to leave. But it's something that I'll always have with me.
Well, it's interesting to always see, like, happiness is just happiness, and what we attach happiness to on specific things, whether it be because it's ingrained through us through television or media or whatever, and what they perceive is like. Because I used to joke with my kids all the time. I'm like, man, I remember, just using like Iraq, for instance, like, kids with like their arms and shit blown off because they were playing with fucking landmines because they thought they were toys. And then like the parents running around with sticks, like beating the kids in the streets and shit. And the kids would be running off like fucking laughing.
Right.
Like missing arms, fucking laughing because they can't catch me and they're not going to beat me, and just like running through the streets with absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I'm like, how in the fuck do you find a smile in that? Like, how do you? Insane. And that, like, it used to trip me out because, like, they'd be fucking throwing rocks at us and we'd be leaving and laughing. And of course, at the time, you're like, man, fuck these motherfuckers. They're throwing rocks at us, man. Like, what's wrong with you? But to them, and I think back, I'm like, well, I mean, I did this. I threw rocks at shit.
Right, exactly.
5 years old. There was like, there was so many parallels when I saw that, where I was like, there wasn't really a fucking care in the world to an extent until I think people that's why I'm real big about, one of my big things now is like, when I talk with a lot of people, I'm like, life doesn't give a fuck about you.
True.
Like it doesn't fucking care, man. No. It doesn't care what you deserve. It doesn't owe you anything. It just doesn't fucking care.
Yeah.
It literally doesn't. So you can either let that motherfucker break you, or you can just enjoy it, man. Like those are the only two options. I don't know how else to look at it.
And it's so hard for people to realize that. I think people don't want to admit that. They want to think that life is just is going to take care of you, and that's completely false, man.
Which is really weird too, because you get wrapped around like, I'm this and I'm fucking getting that, and my life this and that, and it's like, for me, I think that's one of the other blessings I've had is like, being in Thailand and being in Germany and Czech and Chile, and like seeing the weirdest things. Where like, we joke about them now because we're SF guys and we like to drink and we're going to go to strip clubs and we're going to do that. We're going to do that whole world, right? Because we're fucking masculine men. We got to fucking kill shit and look at tits. Like that's what SF guys do. But at the time, for me, I was super fascinated by it. So when we were in Thailand, we're in the Nana district. I'm sure there's a bunch of guys that are like, yeah, the Nana district. Everybody knows what the Nana district is, right? It's like one of the top 5 red light districts in the world, apparently.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm told. I don't know this for sure.
It's just speculating.
It's just what I'm told. And But man, we would be sitting there, you know, in these. They're not even strip clubs, man. They're fucking whorehouses. They just are what they are. These are all everybody's a prostitute in Thailand.
Yeah, I think that's
whether they say they're not. I mean,
all prostitutes.
Yeah, the girl that's serving you a drink. It's like if you offer enough money, she's a prostitute. Which is a weird world because it's totally legal. It's totally accepted. I used to joke with my wife. When I was in Cambodia, we were paying $1 to train at the Olympic Training Center in Cambodia, which sounds amazing. Yeah. But the Olympic Training Center in Cambodia is not amazing.
It's not amazing. It was worth $1.
But they did have full-blown, like 10 works on Olympic barbells, good bearing bars. We were like fucking blown away. We were like, holy shit.
Wow.
But they wouldn't let us drop weights in the gym. So we're like, holy shit, I can't drop weights. So it's cracking us up, man. So we'd pay $1 there, and then we'd take our little tuk-tuk back to our hotel, and then we'd go get a massage, 90-minute massage for $9 every day.
That's a good deal.
So you're getting $70 a day per diem in Cambodia. Our food's provided by the hotel. So we're pocketing $70 a day extra on top of our pay.
Oh, that's nice.
So I'm like $10 a day to exercise and get a massage. So I'm taking care of my exercise, and my recovery is on point. My food is money because the hotel's paying for it, and I'm sleeping 8 hours a night. This is going to be a good trip.
Right.
Gone for 2 months. And about 60 minutes, every 60 minutes or so on the massage, the girl reaches over and just I'm asleep. I'm out. These are Thai massages. You're in like these pajamas that are like slick, you know, so they're giving you this massage super slick. And she just touches you real lightly.
Yeah.
On your pee-pee. No shit. And this is a 60-year-old lady probably, you know. She's well taken care of and stuff.
Yeah,
she does massages and seems like a nice lady. I don't fucking know. This is the first time I'm in there. And it's $9. Reaches over and does a little tap thing. And I kind of like, I'm asleep and I'm kind of awake, but not really because you're kind of getting a massage. So you're like kind of in and out, you know? And I'm like, she just touched my pee-pee?
Yeah.
What's going on here? And I like open my eyes and she like looks at me dead serious. Like didn't skip a beat, like nothing was wrong. And just like does it again and like looks at me dead serious. And I'm like, and I'm kind of like, you know, you start looking for someone to help you.
Yeah,
you
like,
know,
what
like,
am I supposed to do in this situation?
What's going on here? And I'm like, no, I'm good. And I just kind of do this with my hands. And she's like, oh, okay. And she just keeps going to massage and like nothing happened. Like it never happened.
Really?
Yeah, like never happened. Didn't skip a beat.
Oh, man.
Fucking weird. Day 2, same thing. Day
Just
3, yeah. Same thing.
Every time?
Every time. It's just a part of the routine.
God.
So this 60-year-old lady is just like, what do you, like, I think eventually she kind of started to get frustrated. Like, what do you mean you don't want me to relieve you?
Why are you here?
Yeah, what are you here for? I'm like, oh, I need you to massage my muscles. I exercise. Which was super weird. And so for me, I'm super fascinated by that because I'm like, I wish this chick spoke English because I want to like now ask her questions like, hey, is this normal? Is this part of culture? Is this just like you jerk 6 dudes off during the day and go home and have dinner with your husband? Like, is this just normal shit? I don't know. So it's super fascinating to me. So even when we were in Thailand, the Nana district is wild. I mean,
I can only imagine.
Yeah, the shit you see on The Hangover that's not movie fabrication. That just is what it is. The ping pong shows and the darts and all that shit, man. But what was interesting is like, if you buy a drink, a girl will just hang with you. So as long as you're buying a drink, she'll just kick it. So that's how, you know, like in our strip clubs, like you got to pay a lot, $60 for a lap dance for a girl to kick it with you, and it's one song. So I'm told. Allegedly.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too.
So allegedly, that's what it is. And so for $1, you get a Jack and Coke, and this chick will just kick it with you all night.
For throwing out that $1.
$1.
God dang.
No tip, no nothing. Just bring me another Jack and Coke. So it costs you a Jack and Coke to get in, and then you pay a Jack and Coke for the girl to kick it. And she'll just, for like an hour. But her deal is like, fuck, if any, like they'll eventually get to the point. I'm sure they're just getting really tired of sleeping with really gross dudes.
Sure.
Not saying that we're like,
but I'm
sexy or something.
Yeah, right.
You know, I'm a solid 5.
Yeah, I would consider myself. Yeah,
she's probably tired of being with the twos. Yeah, and I was just in these conversations with them, like, where are you from? How the fuck do you get into this business? Like, is this just like and she just gave me the whole rundown. She's like, man, some of them are forced into it, and some of them are picked up as little girls, and it is what it is, and some of us choose. She goes, I chose to be in this because I can either work in a t-shirt factory, making a couple bucks a day. They make, on average, $750 a year.
Really?
In Cambodia.
Oh, boy.
And she's like, or I could, once, she goes, you pay it was like $20 to release them from the bar, and anywhere between $40 and $60 to have them for the night, depending on how you negotiate it with your girl. Apparently, so she could either make $40 in a night, because the $20 is just, the bar is just giving them access to men,
right?
So they just sign a contract with them, like, and it's like this totally like normal.
What an operation!
Super crazy. God. So I'm just buying Jack, and I'm like having this conversation with this chick, and then eventually you can tell she's like, "Oh man, I've been putting in work on you. You're gonna take me home or what?" Like I need to kind of try to go out.
We need to get this going.
I need to try to go out and find $40 if it ain't you. It's just a paycheck.
God, man,
that's
a life.
Unemotionally attached and bizarre to me. So of course now I'm like, I'm getting a little tipsy at this point because I'm probably 5 or 6 Jack and Cokes deep because we're smashing bars at this point. It's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And of course the conversations get a little bit looser, and it's the same conversation with all of them, because I thought maybe this girl was just bullshitting me to like, no, it's totally, we're here by our own choice. Save me. Like no, it's the totally unspoken. They're super honest about it. Like, the mama san, which runs the front end of the bar, and she's just like, you're like, boys, girls, or both? She's like, oh, boys. And you just move to the next one.
Gosh.
You go to the next one, you're like, boys. She's like, all girls. And they don't, like, it's a thing. So, like, guys fly over there to be with Katoys, the lady boys.
Yeah.
Totally a thing, man. I didn't think that was like, but you would see expats and Americans just like,
oh God, I'm sure, man,
all boy bars, and there's like, they don't give a fuck. They're like, I'm never gonna see this guy again.
God, what a scene.
It was a U shape. The non-out district's a U shape, and there's 30 bars on each level, and there's 3 levels.
Really?
It's that big.
Oh boy, I have an anxiety attack.
Oh yeah, it was rough. Well, because I'm not really like party, and it was a bachelor party for one of the SF guys, and they're like, we're gonna hit the non-out district because we could see the non-out district from our hotel, and guys were going there like every night, and me, I'm like, I just need to get some good food and then just rack out, and so that one night they're like, we're all getting together, it's a bachelor party for so and so. I was like, fuck, here we go. And sure enough, man, it was so. But back to the point of like those experiences is, it's like most people are listening to this, they're probably like, oh my gosh, what a dirtbag, and the objectification of women and all this other kind of shit. It's like,
just tell them facts.
I'm like, look, man, this is just their culture.
Yeah, it's the way it is.
And it's like, it gave me this weird understanding of like, some of them just have to make decisions to give themselves the best opportunity to survive in life, and for what it is. And I think that there's merit for us to all understand that, like, we're all making decisions based on what's presented to us right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Whether we're living in the past or we're making decisions based on what we think is going to happen in the future, you're taking information as it is right now and making decisions. The people that are happy and are at peace are the ones that are embracing those decisions.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think that was a weird off rant tangent that I went on there. I don't know where that came from, but
I liked it. That was a good story. It was a very good story.
Good story. Man, I don't want to take too much of your time up anymore, man, because we've been bullshitting for like 90 minutes. It doesn't even seem like
No, it never does whenever I'm doing this.
But man, I can't thank you enough for coming out, man, because I'm already like, you can see me like I'm staring at the ground now, like my wheels are spinning in my head.
Yeah.
I'm processing, a lot of those just experiences and stuff that I probably hadn't thought about in a couple of years, just trying to like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, man, that was cool. That was interesting. But, to hear your story on y'all's podcast, and then to see your social media and stuff, like, I think, selfishly, man, I just want to thank you for that, and at least fucking encourage you to just keep doing that regardless of what happens, regardless of the negative comment that's coming, because I get them.
Oh yeah, no, I appreciate it. And the same to you. Like I said, I like to look at all of those positive influences you included, and I like to listen to your podcast, because it's these conversations help the people that are actually having them just as much as the people that are listening to them, I think. And that's why I just love jumping into this so much, and seeing what I can gain from it and what knowledge I can get from it. I think the experience is outstanding, and I appreciate you having me on today, because it's another experience in my belt to kind of grow even more.
I wish we could just sit back and crack another glass and do another 2 hours.
Yeah, no doubt,
no one's going to listen to us. Again, man, I can't express enough gratitude for that, and fucking vulnerability, man. I think that's one of my. You rolled in with the fucking perfect shirt on today.
Yeah, vulnerability is dope. Yeah, that's the shirt I was wearing.
I'm so infatuated with that lately, and seeing how much it's added to my life, and then snatching on and holding tight to the people that are being just as vulnerable, or even just showing any vulnerability. I think it's a lost characteristic in our society, and it's fucking dangerous.
Yeah, it's very freeing, man. I tell people that a lot. It's very freeing to talk about these things that might embarrass some people. Like even my mom was like, "You want to share all that?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I said I understand, how you might be hesitant hearing me talk about certain things, but it makes me feel so much better. It's such a freeing experience.
Yeah.
And I do think it benefits other people as well.
Yeah, man, for sure. Well, I appreciate it, and we're gonna wrap it up right there, man. Be really podcast, dude, and Brandon Leath.
Yeah, thanks again. Thanks, man, for having me. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the drink too. That was nice.
That's a nice scotch.
That's a good scotch, man.
All right, see you guys next time.
Take it easy.